are you doing, Marshall?
I'm trying to predict the future.
Predict the future with an 8-ball?
Yes, and my name isn't Marshall.
What is your name?
Marshall Damas.
As in Nostradamus?
Yes.
Knowing the future?
Yes, here we go. Here we go.
And
here
what does it say?
It says, I'm not going to win the lottery.
Well, then that doesn't make you Marshall Damas, huh?
It's an accurate prediction. It's been accurate every year.
It's accurate for me because I've never bought a ticket. So, I mean, it's very difficult to win. I almost bought one that last time when it was up to like a 1.4 billion or whatever it was, when it was like, it might be worth a couple of bucks to go ahead and just try it. I mean, come on. But yeah, no, I've never actually bought a lottery ticket.
Nobody buys a lottery ticket to actually win the lottery. If you think you're going to win the lottery, you're delusional. The real reason a person buys a lottery ticket is so that you can have the luxury, the distraction of fantasizing about what you're going to do if you won all that money.
And then you go, oh, that'll be good. Buying, somebody else wins. You're like,
yep, you're buying a fantasy. And then, yes, you'll be all angry when someone else wins it. And, well, what do you do?
Well, this is a valid answer with Scott and Marshall. Marshall
Damas.
Yeah, we have the socialist liberal atheist and the capitalist conservative
clairvoyant
pastor. And we get together every week. Right now, this has been recorded earlier. You guys are watching this Sunday night. This was recorded a little bit earlier because we're going to not be in town. We're not going to be available tonight. Mm-hmm. As you're watching this, we're not available to shoot, but we might be able to make your comments at this point. We can get back to the comments. We love following up on Facebook and continuing the conversation on Facebook through all the comments. So please comment below on what we're saying. We're basically, he has this 8-ball up here, this crazy 8-ball up here, because we're actually going to try to make some predictions for 2019.
I predict you're going to run this show this weekend. Magic 8-ball agrees.
Okay, it looks like that's what's going to happen.
100% accurate.
There you go. That's what is that called? Retroactive prediction. You know what? I'm going to predict a week ago that no, doesn't work that way, huh?
No, I'm afraid not. But let's talk about our predictions, right?
Well, yeah. But first, I mean, we're coming up to the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, man, as you guys are watching this, if you're watching this as it's going out live on Sunday, literally the end of the year is tomorrow. The 31st is tomorrow. And it's the end of 2018. I know.
Good riddance.
I know some people had a rough 2018, and every year somebody has a rough year. Sometimes it's a good year, but as a year comes to an end, another one gets ready to start, and new beginnings, new things going on. So as we're coming up to that time and closing out Christmas time, right? Christmas was last week. Did you have a good Christmas?
It was fine. Low key.
Low key. Yeah, we talked a little bit. We had a Christmas show last week. We talked about favorite Christmas memories and stuff like that.
Yes, we did. That was a nice show.
I had another one. I don't know if you saw it, but I posted on Facebook because we always get those Hickory Farms.
Oh yeah, yes, I saw that.
And I remember as a kid they would have. I don't know. I guess the stores don't do it now.
It's taste of the season, man.
Yeah, I guess the stores don't do it. I never. But back in the day when I was a kid, they would actually have like a hot plate and fry up and you'd walk by the mall back. Oh, I gotta get one of those.
Yep. So. That's a great sales technique.
Exactly. So going into 2019, which is the year that my son is graduating. I mean, I go back to the year I go back to the year 2001 when he was born, and then I remember thinking about like, okay, so what is the math if he starts school and he's 5?
He's going to go to college. Biola, it says. Well, who knew?
Oh wow, we'll play this back a year from now and see what's going on. But yeah, I remember back then looking like, wow, he's the class of 2019. Like that's going to be like never, like that's forever from now. Gosh. And now my son, he's going to be 18 in a couple weeks, and my younger son's going to be 16. And he got accepted to college, the college that he wants to go to. That has a cinema school, and oh my gosh, that's life. You've already lived that with your daughter.
Yes.
Gosh.
Yes.
So I'm catching up, and
she's in her second year of college. So
wow.
So
well there we are.
Happens.
A couple of old guys talking about the future.
There you go.
So what we're going to go into some predictions. This is the kind of things you guys can mark these down, write them down, and then make sure you place money on these because we are that good.
We sure are. The Magic 8 Ball has never been wrong.
Don't do it. Okay. So what is your first prediction for 2019? Not necessarily in order, not like it's going to happen like the first, or it could, but what's your first prediction today for what's going to happen in 2019? Now, this is just 2019, or is this in the future?
Just 2019.
Just 2019.
But
Okay, cool.
I think 2019, Trump goes away.
Define that.
He will either be impeached or more likely, I think he will resign to avoid prosecution. I think that what's going to happen is the Mueller investigation, which has been circling around Trump and his family, is going to get to his family. It's going to get to his inner circle. And those people are either going to have to choose between testifying against him, which could mean his own son and daughter could have to testify against him, or they would go to prison for a long time. And if that's the kind of pressure that's put on Trump's inner circle, President Trump, who I would imagine at least loves his own kids, will then have to make a deal and say, if we drop all of this,
I'm almost questionable
I'll
if that's enough motivation to get him to resign.
Well, that's scary.
He's a little
scary.
egomaniacal, whatever. You know.
But
I can't pronounce it.
I think they have this strategized out. I think they have it figured out. They're waiting for the new year. They're waiting for the new Congress to be seated. But I do think that sometime shortly after the new year, the other shoe drops. And as early as February or March, we see a President Trump departure from the White House.
Is this just wishful thinking?
Well, absolutely.
No, but I'm just saying, is it just wishful thinking? I mean.
Well, let's ask the Magic 8 Ball. Does Trump leave?
All right,
Does Trump leave?
You do your voodoo magic, and you see
spring of 2019 or before. I mean, it could be late winter, right? Does Trump leave
in 2019?
And let's see. It says. What's it say?
It is decidedly so.
It's never been wrong, folks.
It's never been wrong. It gave
That's
you
it.
your winning lottery tickets. It's decidedly so.
President Pence will be the 46th president of the United States.
Come spring of 2019.
That's it, come spring. So there you go.
This is a prediction on Marshall's part. President Pence by spring or summer of 2019 because of a resignation of President Trump.
I think he resigns.
So is that better or worse for your side of the politics?
Well, we don't know what Pence will be like as president. He's obviously very deeply religious. He's a fundamentalist, frankly. And he's probably not somebody we want to see in there from that perspective. However, he'll probably just be a placeholder president for the most part. You know, so as a placeholder, I don't think he's going to do a whole lot of damage. And I think with the Democrats in control of the House, they also put a check on him.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of okay. So I think removing Trump, who, frankly, his lack of political experience is showing. What many of us assumed that when he was elected, well, maybe it would be some kind of an asset. Those of us who were wishfully thinking that this wasn't going to be the disaster that it has turned out to be. But no, it's just
in what way a
disaster? Embarrassment. Well, it's an embarrassment, frankly. I mean, he continually misspeaks and gaffes, like way beyond what even George Bush did.
Yeah.
You know, George W. Bush had a lot of gaffes. And I kind of thought...
Why is that important?
That it was unfair. Well, I don't think it's that important. I think even with Trump, I don't think all of the gaffes that Trump makes need to be criticized at the level that they're criticized. Partly because you have to try to think, what is the person actually trying to communicate?
Yeah.
And President Trump is not a very good communicator, but he is trying to communicate his sentiments and his feelings. And some of those are legitimate. They're valid. He can have opinions. He can have feelings. But, you know, he comes out on Twitter and then he misspells things and so on. And it just creates an embarrassment. So he's basically compounding his gaffes and his errors. That doesn't gain us a lot of respect on the international stage. We as Americans, certainly I as a citizen, have the feeling that we are a laughingstock. That our president is a laughingstock.
Because, again, for 8 years, conservatives felt that the United States was a laughingstock because of how our president at the time constantly apologized for the United States and in policy went out and as conservatives for 8 years we felt embarrassed by the president who would go and bow to other nations and do and basically kiss up to other nations. conservatives felt embarrassed. I think you're just feeling embarrassed because it happens to be the president that's not yours.
Well, no, the issue with Obama is he's still an imperial president and he's still a globalist, which is at odds with his public apology tour, because he's on a public apology tour. He went on several of those, yet he didn't necessarily change U.S. policy. In fact, he doubled down on our imperial policy. So are we going to have another apology tour because we're still bombing people around the world? We still maintain a massive military presence around the world. He did not bring troops home really from Iraq or Afghanistan, we expanded our presence into Syria, it seems very strange to me. It's almost a dog and pony show.
Yeah, I was only commenting.
Commenting. I'm not a friend of Democrats.
No, I know that, but I'm just commenting on the idea that you're like, well, it feels this way. And I'm like, well, it felt that way for 8 years for people on this side. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it was. Actually, doesn't mean that it was actually an embarrassment. It's just that's the way the conservative side felt. That's now the way you feel, but your feelings aren't enough.
Well, I don't believe that Obama made nearly the number of gaffes.
And again,
Kofive, come on, what is that?
Right, but I'm saying you're getting caught up on the gaffes of he's really embarrassing. I'm talking about what he's actually done.
Well, we could talk about policy, but that would take us
I don't want to do that, but
different direction from where the show's supposed to go.
Right, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to point out to you that I think your prediction is more based on feelings and wishful thinking than actually looking at what's going on.
Every single prediction that anyone makes is based on feelings and wishful thinking.
It should be based on research if you're going to make a prediction.
Here's my research.
All right.
There you go. No, I do think, there's some rationale behind what I say. I think the Mueller investigation is going to come to a head. It's freaking time for it to be finalized.
Yeah.
And when that happens, what does President Trump do? It's not going to end well for him. Like a double-digit number of people who've worked for him are now either serving prison terms or awaiting prison. And that's not a good sign. So if all the people who are behind you during your election have gone to prison, what does that suggest? It's not a good trend.
Does it suggest the same thing that all the people connected to the Clintons are dead?
Well, first of all, that's not really true, but the Clintons are crooked too. I'm
playing devil's advocate on that
mastered the discipline of being crooked. But again, I don't want to digress and go into that. I think Trump is in a lot of trouble. I think he knows it, and I imagine he's already.
If he's not gone by 2020, is he beatable in the election?
Very easily. It's the Democrats to lose. It's theirs to lose. But we'll talk about that in a future prediction. So have you got a prediction for me?
Yes. You know, and this was recently in the news.
Want to use a magic 8-ball?
I don't need it.
You don't need it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, this one's not very magic anyway. Doesn't.
You can use your 8-ball to test what I'm going to say.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah, we'll do that. All right. So my prediction is that sometime in this year, Ginsburg will no longer be on the Supreme Court.
I like her. She's definitely a liberal bulwark, if you will.
Yeah,
she's definitely
and it won't be by her.
On the court,
I don't necessarily think it'll be by her choice either. I think her health is poor. I think she's either going to pass away or just be incapacitated by her health and not be able to perform her duties. But I think before the end of this year, Trump is going to have another chance to name a Supreme Court justice. Well,
maybe. Yeah, I think the Democrats will. I don't know. It comes down more to the Senate. I'm inclined to agree with this prediction because she had pancreatic cancer several years ago. Pancreatic cancer is almost in all cases a fatal diagnosis.
That is what my dad passed away with.
And usually you get max 5 years. Now she's lived, I think, beyond that 5-year period. And now we've got some issues with her lungs, and just her old age is what it is. I don't want to detract, however, from the incredible work she has done on behalf of women and on behalf of social
There's actually
justice.
A movie coming out pretty soon. Who's in it? Is it Emma Watson's in it? I think Emma Watson is playing a young Ginsburg. Mm-hmm. I think, but there's a movie coming out about her life and stuff like that.
So,
which is usually the death nail into someone who is.
She could be spending her last years on a beach somewhere or in some sort of happy comfort. And instead,
Yeah.
she is literally dedicating the last of her life to
what she
serving
believes
the
in.
American people and what she believes in.
That's respectful.
And to me, that's a hero. She's
Yep.
gone beyond what is expected and entered the realm of a living hero. To me, now we will certainly disagree with her politics and her decisions.
I
do have one issue, however.
I understand what you're saying. I
Mm-hmm.
respect her in that way, but at the same time, I wish that she never was.
I understand.
Yep.
But I do have one issue.
Okay.
And my biggest issue...
When I say never
with
was,
her-
not like she never lived, but like she was never a justice. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
My issue is it's also the same issue I have for people who like Kavanaugh and others,
Yeah.
which is they are so partisan, you know how they're going to rule in advance of the case.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that our Supreme Court justices should be partisan. I don't believe.
Are
they
you
should
trying to
be
say that she's not?
predictable. She's super partisan,
Okay.
and I don't like that.
Okay.
But I don't also want to take away from the fact that she's a brilliant legal mind, a brilliant jurist.
Yeah.
And frankly, I see her as a hero. However, I generally wish that all of our Supreme Court justices were nonpartisan.
I just don't know if that's even possible.
Well, historically,
humans
that's
are
how
partisan,
it was.
But humans are partisan.
I understand that, but historically, the justices have kept that to themselves. In fact, the first there
So
was a justice
we shouldn't question them?
impeached. I think 1808 or whatever. There was a justice who was impeached, and the basis was partisanship. I think a justice
Should we not ask them where they stand?
maybe, but yes, I think you should. Nonetheless, really, a jurist should say, this is what the Constitution reads. This is what the framers' intent was. This is what the law says. It either
I feel that's what they
meets
do.
that standard or it
They
doesn't.
they just differ in how they think
Exactly.
what they think the founders intended.
Yeah. The problem with a partisan court is you know that if you appeal a case until you get to the court, you know what the decision is going to be in advance.
Yep.
So what does that do? So I just
Makes
think
it really quick.
Well, I don't know. I think it allows somebody who's, let's say, if you have a president like Trump, can do just about anything with the understanding that when it gets to the Supreme Court, they'll probably rule in his favor.
Mm-hmm. Well, typically,
I would like it to be a little more of a crapshoot, a little bit more of asking
typically,
the magic eight ball.
usually the sitting president that nominates the justice usually does not benefit from that justice's nomination. Typically, it's by the time they're in and out, and they're not. There are years that go by and decades that go by.
But
that's why it's so important to put them in there, the right ones.
Right, but if you seat, for example, if they seat another conservative justice, the court is pretty much already locked conservative. Another conservative justice simply entrenches that for at least another generation. And what happens if the zeitgeist changes so much that the people and the
sorry, for
politicians
those of you
liberal,
listening, I
but
gave
the
a
courts
thumbs
are
up.
conservative. Yeah, no, I get it. But anyway, all right, let's ask the magic eight ball.
All right, so Justice Ginsburg will not be a justice by the end of the year, but mostly because of health.
Let's ask the eight ball. It says, ask again later. That's an optimistic. Yeah, okay, I'll take it.
So the eight
not
ball's
a
a
yes?
politician.
The eight ball is never wrong.
The eight ball is like, well, right there, the eight ball is all, I don't want to say.
Yeah, well.
Wow. That was weak.
Folks.
That was weak sauce. Weak sauce from.
You can hate on the eight ball, but you're going to have a hard time getting the lotto numbers. All right. Okay, so.
All right, so what's your next prediction for 2019?
Presidential race is going to be insane, off the hooks.
You're saying by 2019 we'll know who will be running?
No. I think what's going to happen is the field is going to be packed with both Democrats and Republicans.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's going to be a crazy election year, mostly in 2020, but it's going to get nuts by summer of 2019. It's going to get crazy. First of all, the Democrats. The Democrats are trying to push Joe Biden to run. That's the
Talk about a
mainstream-
person with a history of gaffes. I mean, come on.
Right. Establishment Democrats are trying to push Biden to run. Now, the left, the people to the left.
This
the
is
center
creepy Biden
progressives-
who always likes to hug little children and stuff.
Okay, well, whatever. But the progressive left isn't looking towards Biden. They don't want Biden. He's an establishment globalist, just like Obama, just like the Clintons, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually has a record of being a globalist, corporatist politician. So right away, he's going to be a divisive choice for Democrats. Nonetheless, he's got the name recognition. He's got the Obama Association. And if basically he's Hillary Clinton Part 3, if you will.
Is she gonna try again?
I don't think so. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think it's in the cards for her. But Biden, I think, is definitely in the cards.
Let's ask the 8-ball about Hillary.
Well, you want to ask about Hillary?
Yeah.
What's your question? Ask your question.
Will she
yes or no?
Will she run for president in 2020?
Well, let's ask. It's never wrong. My reply is no, it says.
All right.
So Hillary Clinton's out. Never wrong.
Never wrong. Okay, sounds good.
All right. But Biden, however, I think is going to be the early front runner, or at least the Democrats are going to push him. But then there's going to be other people who will run. I'm not sure that Bernie Sanders will run. He's hinted that he might, but I don't think his heart is in it.
The Bernieites, what are they called? People who follow who are
Sanders supporters.
Burners,
if
they're
you will.
kind of burned out on him.
Not necessarily. It's
After he basically just kind of gave up and gave it to Hillary.
He
and
didn't really.
support her,
It's just
openly support her, and
it's just that a lot of progressives felt very disrespected by the Democratic Party, and they still have a sour taste in their mouth.
yeah.
So they're really hoping that the Democrats run somebody to the left of Biden at least throw them a bone. And if the Democratic Party doesn't do this, then the DNC is probably going to go the way of the dinosaur eventually. There could be the emergence of a third party on the left, because remember, the Democrats are not on the left. Everybody assumes Democrats are leftists. They are centrists, and there is a new party emerging on the left of Democrats. The United States has never actually had a real live active socialist or leftist party.
Praise the
We've
Lord.
always had Republicans and Democrats that are really two wings of the same corporate, globalist, elitist party. They're two wings of the same party.
Outside of a handful of small issues.
There are issues, and these are wedge issues that they use to play us, because abortion, immigration, healthcare, some of these other things, these are just
Guns.
wedge issues, guns that
Yep.
they use to play us against each other. But the reality is any politician, any political administration could resolve any of these issues if they simply sat down and seriously hashed it out and solved it.
I think I've gotten to the point where I will simply be a vote down party lines. I think I'm at the point where I'm simply going to just always vote for the non-incumbent.
I don't think that's a bad strategy.
You know what I mean? Like
Right, right.
And the only problem is that does that
Vote
mean
your own term limits.
does that mean I'll be voting for the opposite party? I don't know. I mean, because I still need to,
It's
I
a
still,
moral decision.
yeah, I still want to, if they're representing things that I don't agree with, but when it came down to, like here in California, it came down to it, the only choices were 3 Democrats, and I'm like, well, then I'm going to vote for the one who is currently not sitting, because I just want
Yeah.
term limits.
So
Gosh.
I think there'll be an early race, and I think the Democrats will throw their weight behind Joe Biden, but then there could be another candidate who emerges and becomes wildly
So what is your
popular.
actual prediction, the sentence of your prediction that we're going to test on this? What is your actual prediction? You talked a lot about election. What's the actual prediction? You were kind of general in
I
some
want to
things.
throw out there that Republicans are going to be having their own primary, because I don't think Pence will run for another term, in which case the Republicans are going to be up for grab as well. It's going to be a straight-up election just like it was last time, with both parties putting out a field of candidates.
Okay, so this is feeding off of your first prediction that it's going to be Pence, that Trump is completely out of the picture.
Yeah, so I think Republicans and Democrats both run candidates for president. That's my official prediction that I want to test. I can't
Multiple
say specifically who. I do think Biden will be the early front runner, but I don't know if he'll actually come out on top. So here we go. Am I right? Ooh.
Same thing.
My reply is no.
Your reply is no.
Oh, I'm wrong
But that's
about
the
something.
but that's the same one that we just got about Hillary. So did it actually move, or did
I
you
don't
shake it
know.
up?
You're not really supposed to shake the magic 8-ball, actually, it says.
Okay.
You just turn it over, and it kind of does its own magic.
And it does the same
Let's
one a
test
third
it.
time?
Let's test it. Now it says, as I see it, yes. So
It was random. It was working. So you are wrong on your prediction.
according to the magic 8-ball, which is right 100% of the time.
All right. Mark these down. Mark these down as we go forward.
So do you have another prediction?
I do have another prediction. This one is obviously it's not. I don't want to say it's wishful thinking because I don't want to wish this upon anyone. But at the same time, it is something that would back up the sentiment that people feel on the right. And this is probably all based on emotions and how we feel, but also based on just the escalation of the resistance on the left. I predict that in 2019, the left is going to get much more violent, possibly even an attempt on the president's life.
Much more violent? In what way?
In the idea of that they have made it clear that leftists in general, you've even made this argument before, have made it clear that they consider speech to be violence. So you have said that you consider that speech is violence. Then you have made an argument for the idea that it is at times a good idea to react violently to someone's speech. You made that argument in one of our episodes a few episodes ago.
I'm not necessarily saying it's a good idea, but it is
you said it's acceptable.
Response.
You said it's an acceptable response.
It can be under
and
very narrow circumstances.
But it's never, violence against words is never an acceptable response. But I feel that leftists believe that it is. And that
words
because
matter.
Words do matter, but words are not violence.
Oh, they can be.
They're not violence.
They can be, but I don't want to digress. Into
Right, you
that.
can check out the episode that we did. It's back. It's actually one of our early ones. It's got to be in the teens somewhere. But I believe that the leftists like you do believe that words can be violent and that a violent reaction to somebody's speech is an acceptable response. And I believe that that's going to escalate in this year. I believe that leftists are going to get more violent and possibly even to go so far as to make an attempt on the president's life.
Well, I will tell you that under the Marxist view of history, class warfare, violence is inevitable. It is going to happen. So plan for it. Both the right and the left, there are groups that are planning for it. There are people on the left who are planning for it. Marx himself mentioned that the proletariat should never be disarmed, that the proletariat must arm himself and resist with force, if necessary, any effort to disarm the proletariat, because those who own and control the means of production will never simply hand them over willingly to the workers. So violent revolution is part of leftist ideology. It's inescapable. It's inevitable. So
the tolerant left.
Right. No,
the tolerant left. Yes. The wonderful tolerant left truly believes in violence.
Yeah. Understand. I mean, one of my favorite comments or one of my favorite little comics is shows a guy at the guillotine and he's having his head sliced off and his last words are so much for the tolerant left, and then the guillotine drops.
Exactly.
And that is going to happen at some point because frankly,
they think they know what's better for everybody.
That's why they carry that out. In the estimation of many people on the left, the people who are in power, the conservative right, the capitalists, are themselves committing an inherent act of violence against the majority of people in the world. Now, we can get into an argument over whether or not capitalism is inherently violent or not and all that. I'm just going to say...
they believe it, so they're going to get more violent.
They believe it, so at some point, if...
The violence is not escalated by conservatives.
If the situation, well, again,
not escalated.
If the system is inherently violent and conservatives are maintaining the system, then they are committing an act of violence.
But they're not escalating. That's what I'm saying. Escalation of violence is something on the left.
So, Scott, if every day I get up in the morning and I start whacking you over the head, as long as I don't do it faster, it's somehow okay to be whacking you over the head?
The claim that, the claim that you're whacking over the head is not true.
Well, okay, now that we can debate,
Yeah,
right?
right. But what I'm saying,
people on the left believe
they believe it's true, so they will escalate the violence because they believe something to be true that really isn't. It's not the right that's escalating violence.
Okay, but again, in their belief, the right is perpetuating violence. So you understand that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not actually happening.
Well, again, and that's probably a discussion for another
and conservatives
episode.
won't start violence over things that aren't actually happening.
Well, I don't know. I've heard a number of people post about what they would do if Trump were somehow impeached or whatever. I think those are fringe elements, certainly not mainstream. When we talk about the left, a lot of people, especially conservatives, tend to lump them all together. Mm-hmm. So people who support Obama, people who support Hillary are also in the same boat as people who support Bernie Sanders or Ocasio-Cortez, and people who also read Marx and Lenin and Stalin and have pictures of them in their bedroom. Mm-hmm. And these are
ornaments of Chairman Mao on the White House on the White House tree.
And I'm telling you,
that didn't happen, right?
There's at least 3. I don't know.
It did happen. There's photographs of that. So yeah, they are. Yeah, the Clintons and the Obamas. Yes, they do believe those things.
I'm telling you, there are 3 distinct categories of people to the left of center. Mm-hmm. So you have the Hillary Clinton, Biden supporters, Obama supporters. Those are your mainstream Democrats. Mm-hmm. You do not have to worry about them. They have had power. They have had control of the White House, the House, and the Senate several times before, and they have not turned America into some type of anti-capitalist socialist
It's
utopia.
A slow roll. Yes, they are slowly rolling us that direction. No. Yes.
Now, the Bernie Sanders...
that we're even having these discussions that this is so openly like we should be socialists. It never was like that. It has been a slow roll by those people in those positions. Yes. It's not instant. It's not the revolution you want.
The natural zeitgeist changing.
But that's the slow roll that they have been behind.
And that's the role that the Democratic Party has always played.
Right. So that is they do believe that. They are trying to get there.
No.
Yes, they are trying to get there. They are going that direction.
They will never support a transition to a socialist state in any way, shape, or form, because that is not what they are. They are corporatist, capitalist, elitist politicians, just like the Republicans are. Mm-hmm. So the only thing where you will find liberalism from those Democrats is on social issues, marriage, maybe health care, abortion, guns, things like that. Mm-hmm. They are not socialists when it comes to fundamental economic issues. Now, where you'll get that is with Biden and Ocasio-Cortez and maybe a little bit of Warren, although she's really more
Biden
mainstream.
Or Bernie?
I'm sorry, Bernie.
Yeah.
Bernie, not Biden. Those people are social democrats, but they are still capitalists. But then over to the farther left, you have people who do not have any politicians. Actually, I should correct that. I think the Democratic Socialists of America did win a couple local House seats or whatever. They have got some people into office as of the midterms this last year.
All you got to do is promise people free stuff.
But the real left is the one you should worry about because they are the ones who are practicing their shooting. Okay, there's a thing called the Socialist Rifle Association. It's real. They meet in secret. They tell you don't tell people that you're a member of the Socialist Rifle Association, but they are active. And but trust me, no revolution has ever failed for want of arms. Mm-hmm. So if you are correct...
Has any revolution...
Well, since 1798 in Ireland.
Right, but has any revolution happened in a country that is so armed?
I don't think so.
So individually armed?
No, I don't think so. But I assure you, when it does come, it will come and it will be extremely bloody. It will be very bloody. The establishment will fall almost immediately. And then there'll be a civil war between the right and the left. They'll unite to bring down the establishment, and then there'll be a civil war between the right and the left for ultimate control. And I don't think the right will necessarily last. The left will do most of the destruction.
And they'll destroy each other.
They'll destroy each other. And then out of all of it, the moderates come through. And the moderates take power and form the new government that lasts. Because that's how every revolution works in history. Mm-hmm. Go back to the French Revolution. It follows that exact same pattern. Go back to the Soviet Revolution. All follows the same predictable pattern.
But not the American Revolution.
Well, the American Revolution wasn't really a revolution, even though we call it a revolution. It was more of a, I don't know, like a war of secession, if you will. because the people who were in power at the beginning of the American Revolution were also in power at the end of it. A revolution implies that the people at the bottom come to the top and then go back down to the bottom when it's over. So there's an actual revolution.
So King George was still in charge of
England, and the people like George Washington and the people who made the Congress, right, the Continental Congress, they were leaders and elites here stateside in the 13 colonies. They were also leaders and elites after the Revolution.
But King George was not here.
So it was a war of secession. Okay, so it was, you understand secession, right? Like the South.
Yeah.
Had the South won, the people who were in charge of the South would still be in charge, but they would have their own country. So it was a war for independence, but it was not a proper revolution.
Okay.
So it's a semantic error, I know. So I don't think they make an attempt on Trump's life. Okay, so I do want to refute your actual prediction. And the reason I don't think so is I don't think it's necessary. I don't see why anybody would take those kinds of risks. And I think the fringe left, like Antifa and all them who are on the extreme left and they're very prone to violence, I don't think they're going to get a lot of traction except for my next prediction. But I want to test your prediction.
That there will be an increase of violence from the left, culminating with an attempt on the president's life.
Okay, I hope the answer is actually no. And it says, as I see it, yes. Ooh. I don't like that. I don't want violence. Violence is bad.
No, I'm not wishing for it. I'm just simply predicting it.
No sane human being wishes for violence. If we could achieve socialist revolution and social justice without violence, that's the way to go.
Yep. All right. Your prediction. This is our last one.
Here's why you might be right. And that is, I think recession is coming. Now, the Dow had a really good day today. The stock market ticked back up. But remember, the stock market isn't the economy. Main Street is the economy. They tell you stock market's the economy, but it's not. It's Main Street, because that's what puts food on your table. You pay the bills. You live on Main Street. That's what matters. Yep. Why do you care what some hedge fund manager made or lost in a day? That's irrelevant to you and I. It doesn't pay our bills. However, a recession on Wall Street means that eventually by this time next year, there could be a lot of cutbacks. There could be a lot more people unemployed. I do not trust that a conservative administration will apply the correct remedy, which they will call socialism, even though that's what saved us from the last, the Great Depression, where socialist concessions such as the creation of Social Security, public works programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps, things like establishment of the minimum wage, that saved the country from a full-blown socialist revolution during the Great Depression. And then, of course, World War II came along, which was an incredible, massive public works program. Yeah. But we were already on our way out.
That's what saved.
No, we were already on our way out. But nonetheless, but I think we have a recession that could turn into a depression.
We were on our way to a whole nother bad thing that the war brought us out of. So
yeah, well, the war itself is pretty bad, by the way. I don't think we should be hoping for a world war.
No, I'm not hoping for a world war, but I'm just saying that was a driving factor.
Well, yeah, it put a lot of people to work. It was a lot of stimulus. Keynesian economic theory, by the way, government deficit spending to put people to work does help the country recover more quickly from a recession, because you're putting money in the hands of the people who are actually doing the work.
But you're actually paying for work. You're not just handing things out. That's the difference.
Correct. And I think there's a lot of work to be done in this country. So again, we're probably getting off on what should be another episode. There's a lot of work that could be done in this country. We could create a public works program and a federal jobs guarantee and give people jobs. Literally give them jobs. Remember, hey, a true socialist believes in the power of labor and work. All wealth is produced by labor. No real socialist believes in handouts for nothing. I do not agree with handouts for nothing. Now, I will do that if that's what it came down to keep everybody fed and housed, to give everybody a minimum. But I really believe everybody should be out there working. If you can work, you should be working. But I do think there'll be a recession, because we've rode this growth train for a very long time. We've set a record, but it can't continue forever.
The gravy train is pouring out.
Right, and no bubble lasts forever. It does eventually pop. I think we're about to see it pop, or it is popping as we speak. And when that happens, I don't trust that the conservative White House in particular will apply the correct remedies to reverse
And
it.
you think it'll make it worse?
I think
That's
they'll
your
apply
prediction.
supply
Your prediction is a
side
pop
solutions.
and then a
They make it
worsening
worse.
because of policy.
They make it worse. I hope the Federal Reserve will at least stop raising interest rates, I think. But I don't know what they'll do. They don't have a lot of ammunition in the war chest. Their interest rates are already kind of low. So cutting interest rates and increasing the
We'll
money
do negative
supply
interest
works.
rates. We'll pay you.
Yeah. So I think we get into a recession. And if the recession gets really deep and it turns into a depression, if people are going hungry, that's when you will see violence in the streets. That's when you will see some things that you and I never thought we could see in this country before. We will
How much
see them.
violence happened in the streets in the Great Depression in the 20s?
The FDR administration was very worried about socialist revolution. They thought it was a real possibility, and they actually deployed FBI agents across the country to sort of spy on
But
groups
how
that
much
they thought were
actual violence
problematic.
happened?
I'm sure there was some. I don't know that there was a lot.
But to the level
but-
that you're predicting?
I think we would see worse.
Why?
In this day
What
and
makes it
age.
different?
Well, firearms certainly are more ubiquitous. Mass media.
Mass
media
media, maybe. Yeah.
and social networking
Firearms,
and-
there were still a lot of firearms around. Percentage-wise to the population was still pretty close.
But they weren't. It wasn't like we have today. For example, semi-automatic weapons or whatever. For example, the AR-15, right, to use a common boogeyman.
Yeah.
Has a lot more lethal power.
And most of them are in the hands of the conservatives. But you're saying the liberals are going to be rioting.
They'll have them.
Not to the number that you're talking about, though. Not to the number that
they'll have them. Somebody will supply them if they don't have them already. Trust me, they will. Do you think the United States has enough enemies around the world, whether it's Russia, China, North Korea? These people will literally run guns into the country. The drug lords from Mexico, who already can effectively smuggle things into this country, will run the guns
which is
into
why
the
we
country.
need a wall.
So, wall or not, it's not going to matter. We also have a long coastline. We have a northern border. We have all sorts of means of arming people.
Yep.
So I think, and when I say more lethal, all the asterisks that but basically nobody who lived in the Great Depression had access to an AR-15 or an AK-47. That type of firearm wasn't developed until during the war. And that's a very lethal firearm. It's in existence for a reason. And I think you combine that with social networking, you combine that with the ability now to literally Google how to make a bomb and actually make it, and you no longer need a degree in chemistry to make, explosives and other things.
And I'm sure that didn't get you on some sort of watch list.
Right? I know, right? I'm just talking about these ideas here. I'm not advocating any kind of violence. I want to be very clear about that.
No. I don't. I would not think that
and
that's
I don't
what
think
you're doing.
either one of us here are advocating for any kind of violence.
A prediction is not an advocation.
But I am worried that could happen, which is the way historically for a government to circumvent that kind of inevitability is to do precisely what FDR did and to do precisely what Bismarck did in Germany. Bismarck was ultra-conservative, but even he recognized you had to invent Social Security. That's what he did. He invented the Social Security system in Germany in the late 19th century.
Masses.
Right. Bread and circuses, which is something that even the Romans figured out.
Right, and that worked out really good.
Yes, it did.
That's
The Roman Empire was around for a lot longer than the United States has ever been around.
right.
You have the Roman Empire for almost 500 years.
But that's near the end.
And 500 years of the Roman Republic. Before that, it were probably more like really.
But that's near the end
400.
that those were happening. That was in the last 100 years or so.
What?
The circuses and the...
Oh, no, that was happening even during the time of the Roman Republic. The Roman Republic had its fair share of domestic troubles. And they understood that if you keep people fed and you keep them happy, they tend not to rebel.
Right, but with the reference to the circus, the reference to all of that was late in the Roman Empire. That was the death throes of the Roman Empire.
No, the Roman circus existed well before the time of Christ. And by the way, it was in the Roman circuses, I want to say the Circus Maximus in particular, which is where most of the Christians were put to death, sort of as halftime entertainment. It wasn't really the Flavian Amphitheater, which we know of as the Colosseum, most Christians are put to death at the circuses, the chariot races, rather than in the Colosseum.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
So anyway, humans are humans. They react the same way to the same stimuli, no matter what time period they're in. So if people are hungry, if they are starving, if they don't have hope, they are very likely to join some sort of revolutionary movement that offers them hope, which is why it's very important if we do end up in a recession. And if that recession, if we end up in a recession, we need to apply the correct remedy, period. And if we don't,
your
there's a
definition of the correct remedy is the one that leads us more towards eventual failure.
I disagree.
That's literally placating the populace. Never solves it. It only prolongs it and postpones it.
I disagree. I think feeding and taking care of people.
No. I'm talking. Go back through history. Every time that's happened, eventually it fails.
But we live in a world today that's different in one way, which is that there is enough wealth and material resources in the world today to sustain everybody. That hasn't been the case at any time throughout history until the modern era. So today, the past 4 or 5 decades, for the first time in history, has the world been so productive, there is literally enough for everybody to have enough. And so that, I think, changes the calculus.
All right, so let's see what the 8 Ball says about there being a deadly recession.
A recession, hopefully not deadly. And
Don't
it
shake
says
it.
here, it's between 2. It still won't. We'll have to start over.
It didn't
Will
show
there be a
either one, did it?
recession in 2019? Yes, there's going to be a recession. But the Magic 8 Ball says, outlook not so good.
Wow, so that's 2 that this 8 Ball said that you're wrong on.
No, I think it's agreeing with me. It's saying the outlook for the economy is not so good.
No, the outlook for your prediction is not so good. This is answering.
See.
This is
We'll
answering
see.
the prediction. You can't change the semantics on that. This is answering your prediction that the outcome of your prediction doesn't
Never
look
wrong.
good.
Never wrong.
So this is saying I was right both times and you were wrong twice.
Well, we'll see.
All right, so everybody
They call
make a
me
note of that
Marshall Damas for a reason.
because you're wrong. Because
No,
he was
because
mostly
I'm
wrong.
Right. Gosh.
We'll see if Marshall Damas is always right, or if the 8 Ball is always right. Obviously, this is all done tongue in cheek. I don't actually believe in seeking an 8 Ball for what's going on in the future. But yeah, we're having fun with that. You can catch us Sunday nights right here on Facebook, kerncast.com, Sunday nights at 5, Mondays afternoons at 4 o'clock. And until next time, talk on the comments. Post all your stuff, whatever you think of our predictions, and then we'll catch you on the flip side on the next show.
Awesome.
See you guys later.
Then.